It's officially the end of an era in Toronto. As first reported by Elliot Friedman on Monday, Mitchmarner is headed to the Vegas Golden Knights, signing an 8-year extension with an AAV of $12 million. However, he is technically signing the contract with Toronto, and then the Leafs are trading him to the Knights as a sign-and-trade. Thus, Vegas essentially got to acquire the rights to Mitchmarner before he could hit free agency. According to Bob McKenzie, Toronto will be getting a 28-year-old forward Nick Roy back in this deal, or Nick Waugh. Either way, he's been an incredible forechecker for Vegas and a versatile piece throughout his career, but in no way, no shape, or form is he the same caliber of player as Mitchmarner. And this means that Toronto just lost one of their best players for something that definitely isn't equal value. But with this being the turning of a page, Toronto looking to move forward, as well as Mitchmarner, we are now going to see a new chapter for the Maple Leafs as they finally break up the core four. Wow, wow, wow. I mean, I can't say I'm shocked because there's been reports about this for months, but I still have some goosebumps just thinking about Mitchmarner no longer playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all enjoying free agency this year. As you've seen by now, Mitchmarner has been signed and traded to the Vegas Golden Knights for an 8-year extension worth $12 million per season. And there's been a lot of big moves that have happened over the past 48 hours, but this one in particular deserves its own video breaking down exactly what this is going to mean for Mitchmarner, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the league in general. But before we get into the topic of today's video, first off, if you enjoy the content, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. And also, let's read off your comments from my most recent upload. Alright, so these are all comments coming off my most recent upload talking about the Sabres, the JJ Peterka trade, and that organization's future. With the first one coming from @LilBeanie5698, who answered the prompt on my last video talking about creators or players you would like to see me interview more here on this channel. So his comment reads, "Next man up, Ek or Hockey Psychology. Keep it up, man. Love the videos." Believe it or not, I actually was in contact with Hockey Psychology a little bit ago, so that could be one of the guests that I bring on pretty soon, but I would love to work with any of these guys. They're all great creators and are doing amazing things for the hockey space. Next comment comes from @SteveTerrian-T3T, who says hockey junkie or whiskey lungs. Again, similar to those last guys, I think these would be amazing guests to have on the channel. They do their own commentary style of videos, and I think that they would have some great insights into the league, and if they have a favorite team, into their favorite team as well. The next comment comes from @Italian1IST, who says, "I think Buffalo is an extremely talented team. The issue is that they're a young team. If Buffalo can hang on to their talented players and let them enter their prime, they could be an extremely successful team. They need to figure out how to keep their talented players, though. They could have already won a cup by now if their players had not been traded." And I actually think there's some truth to this. Usually Buffalo moves on from players right when they come out of either their rookie contracts or their entry-level deals, and I think that's kind of been the biggest problem for the team. Organizationally, they need to establish a better culture, and that's how you keep these players. But either way, I think you're right. They got to be hanging on to these players a little bit longer than just 4 to 5 years after they draft them. The next comment comes from @MrFreddy123. "Just found your channel tonight. I've been binge watching your videos. Great stuff, man. Great videos to put on in the background during a chill sesh. Appreciate the support, man. Welcome to the community. I hope you enjoy talking hockey with us all." And the last comment comes from @AChannel362, who says, "Cross-pollination of hockey YouTubers is what's needed. Keep going." Completely agree. We're all just trying to build up this beautiful game, and if we can do it together, I think that that would be awesome as well. But to everyone who watched that video and who's watching this video, thank you so much. If you want to keep supporting the channel, give this one a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you want to be featured in the next video's comments, be sure to drop your thoughts below. But now with all that being said, let's get into the topic of today's video, Mitchmarner going to the Vegas Golden Knights. Alright, so obviously Mitchmarner was the biggest UFA of free agency this year. Like I mentioned at the top video, he signed an 8-year, $12 million per season deal with Vegas to play with the Golden Knights for the foreseeable future. And fun quick fact about Vegas, they now have 2 of the top 4 picks from the 2015 NHL draft, and both of these players were not drafted by the organization. Jack Eichel and Mitchmarner will now be paired up with Vegas, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a later part of this video. But as for Mitchmarner, he spent the last 9 years playing for the Leafs and put up some pretty incredible numbers during his tenure. 741 points in 657 games played, including his first 100-point season to couple with 63 points in 70 playoff games. And to be honest, the end of the core four isn't all that shocking to me. The culture in Toronto has needed a bit of a shakeup for quite some time. The thing that's really shocking to me, though, is Vegas. How did Vegas pull this off again?
He can't keep getting away with it! He won't.
All jokes aside, I think it was time for Marner to experience something new, especially after all the criticism he's received over his past few playoff runs with the Maple Leafs. At times, Marner has struggled consistently to produce offensively, and despite being a reliable two-way forward in the regular season, his playoff defense has taken a significant drop over the past 2 runs. And that actually segues perfectly into the next topic of this video, which is the legacy of Mitch Marner in Toronto. How will fans remember this player following his tenure with the Leafs? While I think it should be close to a 50-50 split, a love-hate relationship of the player, in reality, I think most Toronto fans have already turned on the player, and his return is going to be met with boos as the city continues to villainize him for walking away. But let's be real here. Part of this is warranted. If you're surprised that Marner is walking away, and you're acting like you didn't have a part in it as a Maple Leafs fan, then you're kind of fooling yourself because you've been asking for this for years. Fans have made Marner the punching bag whenever the team falls short, and 9 times out of 10, he's the first one they blame for all of the early exits. And I think this actually came into play when he was negotiating his contract, similar to how other players are asking for more in Toronto. And let's pause for a second. The whole income tax conversation has become super popular across the league, but I don't want to talk about that all too much. I actually want to talk about the other stuff that makes signing in Toronto so difficult. The media and the pressure of the fan base, and how that definitely comes into play when you're a player looking to sign as a free agent. Just trying to watch Marner over the past year through his final contract year with the Leafs, I found out that it's pure insanity. Any small mistake or miscalculated decision is ripped apart and expected to be explained in great detail. Something that's not typical in other places, and definitely not something he's going to experience in Vegas. So legacy-wise, when you think about Mitch Marner, yeah, he's going to be villainized by the fans. But a small section of the fan base is going to miss this guy, especially when you see that massive hole in their lineup that hasn't been filled yet. He was a big part of bringing the Leafs back to relevancy. Remember those dark years where they were nowhere close to a playoff berth, and Mitch Marner was one of the big pieces that kind of turned the organization around? That's the type of player that you're losing, not just a guy who makes a few mistakes in the playoffs. Not a guy that you made fun of for years and years. It's a guy who's super talented and was a pivotal piece to your core. But that's the legacy of Marner in Toronto. Whether fans like it or not, they created sort of a hostile environment. And some of it was warranted, don't get me wrong. I do think that Mitch Marner fell short a lot of the times. But for the most part, getting a guy in the first round who's a basically perennial 100-point scorer, who does all of the right things throughout the regular season, and maybe his game doesn't translate great to the playoffs, but his impact was still felt. I think that that's going to be something that Toronto fans truly miss as he moves on to the next chapter. And that segues perfectly into the next thing we're going to talk about in this video, Vegas signing Marner. So why Vegas? And is it a good fit for both the player and the organization? First thing, I think it's a great fit for both sides. Vegas needed to add scoring to their lineup, with Marner coming off a 102-point season, and I feel he's the perfect winger for a guy like Jack Eichel, who's also coming off the best season point-wise of his career. Eichel is also due for a new contract next season, so giving him a talented winger like Marner will add some incentive for him to stay with the Knights. Plus, they're also dealing with a few other storylines, like Alex Pietrangelo stepping away from hockey for a little while, so adding talent is kind of needed right now for Vegas. And I'm not quite sure that they're done making moves just yet, because they still want to remain a competitive team for the playoffs. While Marner may have escaped the pressure of the media and the fan base in Toronto, he will be experiencing a new kind of pressure. Something that was actually highlighted by Steve Dangle in his podcast when his guest talked about how Marner is going into an organization that has a winning culture. And while the fans and media won't be on his back to win, the organization will be. And if he becomes a shell of himself after putting up numbers in the regular season during the playoffs, they won't be afraid to trade him. They've done it before, and they will do it again. And I think that that's going to be the biggest storyline we have to pay attention to as Marner enters this new chapter. Last thing I want to talk about is what's next for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They now have a massive hole in their lineup and very few options available to fill that spot. At the time of this recording, there are some players still on the market, Nikolaj Ehlers, Brock Besser, Mikael Granlund, but they will all likely sign with other teams before Toronto gets a chance to make an offer. But good news for the Leafs, they have been heading in the right direction as of late. They signed Tavares and Nyes to below market contracts, and with Berube, they've built a culture that feels more sustainable and defensively sound compared to Leaf teams of the past. But there's no other way of looking at it. Mitch Marner, he has a new test ahead of him, but the Maple Leafs also have a very challenging hole that they need to fill. And without Mitch Marner, they're going to see a drop-off in scoring and definitely a drop-off in talent. So to wrap this up nicely, the core four is finally broken up, or at least a new chapter has begun over in Toronto, and Mitch Marner will be experiencing for the first time a change of scenery in the NHL after almost a decade of playing with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But let me know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on the Mitch Marner move? Do you think that he's going to be a good fit in Vegas? Are you kind of upset that he's leaving Toronto, or are you happy that he left the organization? Let me know all of your opinions in the comments below as always. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe now. I also have a few other pieces of content here on the screen for you to check out if you're bored during this off season. And again, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next episode.